Hello and welcome to part 4 of Fundamentals. Now, this is about choosing how you feel. Now, in the previous 3 videos, we've obviously looked at the stress response, how we fill the stress bucket, how we empty the stress bucket, and becoming aware of where our mind is, because then we're understanding that where our mind is determines how we think about things, and that determines how we feel, because that means that that's how we choose the neurochemicals that we're producing, okay, which then determines, obviously, the feelings that we have in our body. So, this is about starting to understand how to choose how you feel, okay? Now, what most of us do is, if you imagine a scale between sort of anxiety at the top and depression at the bottom, most of us, in some way or other, certainly at certain specific times of our life, we bounce between those two. We go up and down the scale. So a lot of us feel anxious a lot of the time to varying degrees. Now, when we're up the anxious end of the scale, then we're producing an overload of stress hormones, okay, which are keeping us on edge and keeping us wired and, and things like that. So that's not really helpful to us because, again, we're triggering the stress response. Lots of people just live in the stress response. They really don't know anything else. They think that's normal. It isn't normal. It's dysfunctional, okay? So lots of people live there pretty much permanently. So again, this is how we're filling up the bucket. And then even those same people, they're up there a lot, and then they might just bounce straight down to the depressed end of the market where, oh, I'm just feeling really depressed. And we're not producing any neurochemicals at all, okay? And we just feel low and we feel empty and we feel disconnected and we feel depressed, okay? Now, what we want to start doing is getting into the middle. Okay. Now, we haven't really spoken too much about the types of neurochemicals, but what we want to start talking about is there's lots of what you could call good ones. There's like serotonin and dopamine and endorphins and things like that. But if we just kind of, talk about, say serotonin, that's a really important one that you may or may not have heard of. Now, you can think about that like nature's happy juice. Okay. It's like a reward that we get. So the evolution gives us a reward for thinking and working and functioning in a particular way, okay? Now, we're going to talk about how to start targeting serotonin. And it won't just be serotonin. As you start to do things, we're going to get more of kind of dopamine and endorphins and stuff like that. But just to keep it simple, we'll talk about it just as serotonin, okay? So I want you to know that you can start to target that and to start to feel that, okay? Now, if you recall, what we learned was that the way that you think determines how you feel because your mind can't tell the difference between real life and imagination. Do you remember? So if we go back to the polar bear, when we saw the polar bear for real, that triggered particular stress hormones. And then when we were safe, but then we thought about it, it triggered the same stress hormones, didn't it? Because the mind couldn't tell the difference between real life and imagination. Well, guess what? It works with positive, good feeling neurochemicals as well. Okay, it's just that most people don't think that way. So what we can start to do to choose how we feel is, so if we're targeting serotonin, how do we produce that? Through positive thoughts, positive actions, and positive interactions, okay? Now, I want you to try something with me. Now, I've tried this kind of one-to-one with hundreds and hundreds of people, and I would say probably something over the half of people can actually feel something. So we're going to try this now. If you can't feel something straight away, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you. It just means that you need to practice a bit more. So you might not quite get it yet. But what I want you to do is just to sit quietly for a minute and see if you can recall a specific moment in your life that you felt brilliant, that was just really good fun, or you felt really proud about what you've achieved, or anything like that. Now, it could be anything, but something that doesn't have any negative associations. There's nothing negative attached to it. Just a moment of pure joy and bliss and. So if you can't think about something, maybe even press pause for a second and just give yourself a second to find something. Now, hopefully you can find something. Now, again, if you can't even think about anything, see if you can imagine what it would feel like to have a wonderful moment, to feel proud, to feel joy, to go somewhere that you've always wanted to go, something. So just bear with me and try that now. Just try thinking about that moment. going back to that moment, imagining that moment in as much detail as you can. What the weather was like, who else was there, what you were wearing, the sounds, and step back if you can into that version of you in that moment and remember what it felt like in your body. And now pay attention to how you're feeling in this precise moment. You might notice that you're smiling a bit. You might notice that you just feel a bit lighter. Okay? Now pay attention to that. If you're noticing a difference, if you're noticing that, oh, you just feel a bit more ease in your body, yeah, you feel a little bit happy, you feel a bit lighter, that's because you just produced serotonin because your brain thinks that that just happened. Okay? Now, if you didn't feel anything, don't worry, there's nothing wrong with you, okay? You just need a bit more practice, so just bear with it. But hopefully, to at least half of you watching, there's proof there that the way that you think determines how you feel, okay? So that's what we've got to start doing. We're going to start choosing how we feel by deliberately having what we can call inner rehearsals, or you could call it visualization about things, okay? So you can start to pick certain things that you want to feel differently about, and you then start to visualize that going the way that you want, being the way that you want, okay? So we produce serotonin through positive thoughts. So let's say that you've got an interview or an exam coming up or just something, or even just getting up and enjoying your day. You can think, okay, this is how I want it to go. This is how I want to feel. I'm going to think good things about myself, good things about the people around me, good things about this situation, and start to play that in your mind. And remember, every time you're doing that, your brain thinks it's real, so it will reward you with these good feeling neurotransmitters, okay? And not only that, your brain lays down what we call templates. It becomes a habit. So if you do this frequently enough, then it starts to become normal, okay? And you start to produce more of that. So that's the thinking part. Then actually go ahead and do that. So if there's something that you're not currently doing that you think, I'd like to do this, visualize yourself doing it or doing it differently so that it feels good. Then actually take action and do that. And guess what? When you take positive action, that will produce more positive neurotransmitters. So that will produce more serotonin. That will get you feeling better. And then inevitably that will lead to better, more positive interactions with other people. So positive thoughts, positive actions, positive interactions. So if we're having a positive thought about something, bit more serotonin, we feel a bit better. Positive action, taking action, doing it differently, produce more serotonin. We're feeling a bit better. That will lead to more positive interactions with other people, and that produces even more serotonin. And if you doubt that, think about when you feel really good, when you're laughing with your mates, your friends, when you're doing something, when you've got positive interaction with people, it feels great, doesn't it? And so that's because you're producing serotonin. So you can start getting into the habit of choosing how you feel, okay? Now, one of the other things that you can do to practice this more is if you go into the Inner Balance coaching system, you find the reframe section. So there's a technique called reframe, and there's a meditation track. There's a PDF that you can print off that explains how to do it. This will help you target how to reframe things, okay? So this is how you can start choosing how you feel, okay? So that's the end of part 4 of fundamentals. So hopefully you've got a better idea now about this whole thing about the mind-body connection and realizing that the way that you think determines how that you feel. Okay, so now you've got a greater understanding about this. You can start diving into the how-to series of videos to go in a bit deeper to start really making the most out of this and transforming your life. So I hope to see you in one of the how-to videos.